Trudeau
Uh,
said that all Canadians were humiliated by this Nazi in Parliament. There's some truth to it, but I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong.
no,
It was the
no.
government that humiliated us. I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. He did it.
Yeah, no, it's always when Trudeau makes a mistake. Now, you didn't have to even Google this guy. We knew that Russia was one of our allies against Nazi Germany. So if someone, this is in the Second World War, if someone was fighting Russia, it was probably Nazi Germany. So how it even, I mean, I don't care who it was. I didn't have to Google him. I knew from the outset, if you're fighting Russia, and Russia was one of our allies in the Second World War, it's probably a Nazi. And it proved to be so. So it is, Ezra, how many times has Trudeau done something absolutely atrocious and blamed others? And we're talking about positions that were never, always sacrosanct in Canada and never part of the political. So Attorney General of Canada, Jody Wilson-Raybould, never in the history of Canada has Attorney General been thrown out because she was doing her job.
Right.
That was a person thrown. I mean, I was appalled to know that the Attorney General of Canada that was upholding the law for Canadians was kicked out to save Trudeau's butt.
Yeah.
Then you have Michael Wernick, the Privy Council, the chief of the Privy Council that represents all bureaucracy, that is supposed to be unbiased, admitting that he was biased in favor of Trudeau, and he went out in shame to save Trudeau's butt. Now we have the Speaker of the House, again, supposed to be an unbiased person, sacrificed. How many prominent Canadians, if I were to do a list of the number of Canadians who were thrown under the bus to save Trudeau's mistakes, ineptitude, and frankly, disgusting acts. The We Charity thrown under the bus. His best friend, Gerald Butts, thrown on the bus. I mean, every Canadian, Canada was thrown on the bus when we were told we are a genocidal country. I mean, how many people are going to be thrown under the bus? Does all that just so Trudeau can maintain his ineptitude?
Yeah. You know, I learned a new word in the last year. It's actually sort of a made-up acronym. I'd never heard it before, but I think about it a fair bit now that I have. You know, sometimes something's going on and you don't know how to express it because you've never heard the word, and you just get a word and now suddenly you can see it where you hadn't seen it before. That word, it's a made-up word. It's DARVO, D-A-R-V-O, and it's an acronym. If I remember it correctly, it's deny, accuse, and reverse victim and offender. And it's a psychological manipulation trick. If someone is doing something awful to you and you challenge them on it, they deny it, they accuse you of doing it, and they flip the victim and offender, DARVO. And it's in psychologically abusive personal relationships. And I think that Trudeau is the master of DARVO manipulation. Another word for it might be gaslighting. So Justin Trudeau is caught, for example, being credibly accused of sexually assaulting Rose Knight, the woman in Creston, BC. So he denies it. He says she experienced it differently. Okay, he didn't quite blame her, but blackface. And in this case, I guess a better example would be he's always apologizing for what other people did, but never for what he did. So he'll apologize for what someone in the past did, which is not really an apology. It's a way of raising himself up and showing that he's morally superior. But I note, Manny, that he did not apologize. He didn't say the word, I apologize or I'm sorry, at all during this whole Nazi thing. Sorry, over to you.
Yeah, and I understand he met with this Nazi. He's met, like, it's amazing. Trudeau has met with Joshua Boyle. Remember him?
Yeah.
In his prime minister's office. This is a Taliban guy that was charged with assault. I mean, Trudeau likes that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, even if Omar Khadr fought very hard for his charter rights. It seems that if you're on that side of the spectrum, Trudeau has time for you. But if you're a good old truck driver that simply brought food to us and we're called heroes, he has no time for them. Mm-hmm. So it is. I think it goes like if you. I don't know if there's an acronym for this, but if you take the most perverse factual situation and show tolerance to that most perverse factual situation, you are a better person. So if you're and we're getting there with this grooming, what's happening with children, if you're tolerant of these people, then you are a better person. And that's what it's all about. It isn't about the issues at hand. It's I'm a better person, and then it comes and flies in your face. And that's what happened in the House of Commons. It's a travesty of what happened. I mean, I can't believe Canada has fallen. Ezra, every time we meet, I think Canada is at its low. Mm-hmm. And it's lower each time. Mm-hmm. I cannot believe what's happened to Canada. We are a laughingstock. Russia is saying, see, we told you. We told you. They're harboring Nazis. They're praising Nazis. We got to stay strong. He has, the $9.5 billion that Canada spent to help Ukraine, mm-hmm. that was all lost. And all that goodwill went to Russia with this stupid act. Yeah. We blew $9.5 billion. I think the world now sees, and what are we doing? Ukraine, this move that Trudeau has done or failed to do has set back Ukraine. I think historians will write this was the turning point of mm-hmm. the support for Ukraine.
I mean, there have been neo-Nazi militias in Ukraine. The Azov Battalion is the name of one of them. And Zelensky and his defenders say that's not most people, that's marginal. They're not as bad as you think. Like, they've really downplayed sure. it. And by the way, I don't believe that most Ukrainians are fascists. I simply don't believe it. But this was, quote, proof. I mean, this was a propaganda coup for the Kremlin, right. who can say, look, yeah. we always said they were Nazis and there were Nazis. I mean, and not just new fascists, but a 98-year-old man who actually fought under Hitler. Right. Like, you couldn't have made such a thing up. They couldn't have dreamed it up over there in the Kremlin, that they were right. handed this gift from Trudeau. You're right. He did a great disservice to his purported ally, Vladimir Zelensky.
Yeah, and Poland, if Poland has now distanced itself from Ukraine, has basically asked for a prosecution of this man. I mean, so Poland is now totally offside with mm-hmm. Ukraine, are not going to help. This is the beginning of the end of the Ukrainian war. Mm-hmm. It is, and I think a lot of people, because Trudeau loves to grandstand. Trudeau mm-hmm. loves, now Ezra, we have to be very careful with history. If somebody makes a mistake once, we go, oh, a mistake. Mm-hmm. But remember, Trudeau did this with Saudi Arabia, with the journalist that was in jail, and his name escapes me. And Trudeau wanted to show the world that he was the charter rights right. leader. And Saudi Arabia said, cut off all ties, cut off everything. And the world basically sided with Saudi Arabia. We were alone. And now we're alone again. And now with India, we're alone again. I mean, Trudeau has, because he wants to Ezra, I'm going to make it very simple for you. If you have fundamental values, you don't fall into these situations. If you are a preener, a virtue signaler, and just want to look good at the moment, well, get me some old Ukrainian guy, and we say we fought in the war, and I look good. Mm-hmm. No, if you have fundamental values, you say, hey, let's check this out. Yeah. But Trudeau everything is a show. Yeah. Everything is optics. Everything is a sentiment. Let me jet around the world so I can tell everybody about global warming. It's all optics. And if you don't have a fundamental base, everything ultimately collapses. And that's what's happening with Canada. We have no fundamental base. We have no fundamental ideology. We're rudderless going through the ocean, and we don't know where we're landing, and we have nothing. And it's a terrible situation, because Canada was a principled, strong nation with lots of core values that saw us through from one prime minister to another, whether he be liberal or conservative, the same core values. Freedom of speech got us through. Every prime minister understood that. Every prime minister understood the rule of law. Everything. He has made Canada rudderless.